Good day, business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and corporations. Welcome to the Black Business Network. My name is Taisha McCoy, and I am your business moderator for this session on the Black Business Network. The Black Business Network is a 24-hour business network showcasing Black businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders worldwide. We have speakers from North Carolina, London, Singapore, Africa, Japan, and cities all over the United States. The Black Business Network is a global community sharing its business knowledge to empower, inspire, and educate business about business. I would like to introduce to you today our speaker. His name is Mr. Edward Fairley, a renowned relationship coach, counselor, and author of the Handbook for Increasing Your Relationship IQ. With years of research in relationships intelligence, he founded Know Love, that is KNOWLOVE Inc., a groundbreaking platform offering fun, real life relationship stimulations, including the Know Love board game. I would like to introduce to you the next voice and face that you will see, Mr. Edward Fairley. Remember, genius is common, and I will see you on the other side.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Edward L. Fairley, and as you so eloquently stated, I am the founder and CEO of No Love Incorporated. That is KNOWLOVE Incorporated. And today we are going to discuss and unpack a sensitive topic because I know people are passionate about this great book, and that is called The Five Love Languages. So, what we have titled this segment is The Five Love Languages Flaws. So, let's just dive in. The first thing that I want to discuss is what's wonderful about this book. I mean, groundbreakingly wonderful about this book. And that is the fact that the book has single handedly abolished and gotten rid of the philosophy of male and female generalizations and should be applauded for. We have been for centuries being educated by doctors and gurus and influential figures or coaches to teach the generalization or polarization of male and female, and to suggest that this is a way in which we can get each other to understand one another, to accommodate one another in our respective relationships so that we can enjoy a blissful or happy relationship. So that's what we want to first discuss. So as I shared earlier, this it's finally a book that has steered people away from generalizing male and female or men and women when it comes to how we think, how we feel, how we respond, not only in relationships, but in life itself. Because ultimately, relationships, though it may be taught as it pertains to a romantic relationship, that bleeds over into business. That bleeds over into your relationship with your children, your family, your household, your parents, because you still communicate with them. You still have to consider their thoughts, their feelings, how they respond, and things of that nature. So that is ultimately what we're doing. If we're working on love, love is going to not just be in your respective romantic relationship, that is going to bleed over to life. So that is one thing that is impressive. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, it ended up transcending past relationships, and then they had it for kids and everything. So clearly it shows and proves that relationship tools are not just for romantic relationships. Another thing is the reason why those philosophies have worked for century, polarizing and generalizing male or females, because for centuries women did not have rights. So the roles afforded them were minimal. So they were institutionalized, trained, and molded into these specific roles and handed an identity. This is how a woman is. This is how, because culture is not going to allow you to be any other thing. Why learn these tools, or why expound on these gifts if you can't do anything with society or in society with these respective gifts if you are a woman? So they were taught and they were molded to be in the kitchen, to clean the house, to nurture the children, or do all of these things for the children. And then the men were also defined in their roles because they got all the rest of that, whatever the leftovers were, anything past the kitchen, the bedroom, or the house, or teaching, that was a manly thing. So that, from a cultural standpoint, was what allowed for men to be that way, or to think that that's who they were, or to identify with, this is what a man does. And the same thing with women. And when you are institutionalized for centuries as this being the way that things are, that is going to last for centuries, even when things evolve. And we'll tap into that in a moment. So these philosophies that started way back when horsepower really meant horsepower, because that's how people, they actually use their means of commuting. That's when these philosophies were pretty much cemented into culture. But as we evolved, we still kept it. And that's what got us things or topics or books that say stuff like men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or act like a lady, think like a man, or understanding women. Everything you need to know about men, you can learn from a dog. Different topics that just generalize male and female. So even though we evolved in our way of teaching lifestyles, now the woman helps with the household. The man is not just the one that's working and bringing home the bacon, so to speak. Everything is shared. We still have those subtle, or had those subtle philosophies embedded in our mindsets that cause us to not, one, communicate effectively because we're assumptive in our responses towards one another, or assumptive in the way that we think they will respond to us because they are the gender that was generalized. So we evolved in all of that, but for some reason we kind of kept that. This book took that away. It took centuries of programming away. It allowed for people to finally stop saying, well, he's a man, so this is what he needs. She's a woman, so this is what she needs. This is how you speak to or treat a woman. This is how you speak to or treat a man. And it gave us these languages, these 5 love languages that allowed for people to stop identifying with this thing, because it's human nature for us to try to make things simple. Some things, just though they can be simplified, they're not simple. They actually take work and effort. So we will do all of these things to prevent us from the effort that it takes for something to be as good as it could or should be. And what that did was, it allowed for us to kind of, though we moved away, it kind of brought in another problem. So now we're kind of moving away from the greatness that this book has given us to the subtle issues that it causes. So, because I know how many fans come as a result of this book, I'm going to warn you that it's going to feel uncomfortable to hear me say the next few things. But I promise you, if you stick with me and you listen, you will understand how, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And this actually could be causing issues in my relationship, or my perspective, or my approach towards relationships. So I'm going to pivot, And again, brace yourself because it's kind of me taking a sacred cow from you, taking a belief that you just knew to be true. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to read a little bit from a piece that I had written. So this is kind of where it pivots and goes to what's bad about the book. So while the five love languages does a great job of steering people away from generalizing men and women, consequently, it's at the expense of transitioning the reader to another repackaged taught belief and generalizations. Let me show you what I mean. To identify with and proclaim that your love language is words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, etc., and that's just how you're wired or how you are, is no different from saying that he or she is a Leo or a Pisces or a Capricorn. So what they did makes sense. You know how we talk, well, oh, she a Gemini, she crazy. Or he's got split personalities. You know how Pisces are, you know how those Capricorn, we identify with these things and we suggest that a person is this because they were told that this is what they are. And that is just dangerous. And even in the sense that when you start doing stuff like that, you start searching for who you are and what the thing says that you're supposed to be, as opposed to identifying who you are, being a student of self, recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses, and having the opportunity to work on them or even strengthen them even more, and going from there. So I know that it might be conceptually frustrating for me to correlate your truth with the teachings of zodiac signs, but let's do it this way. I'm gonna read 5 sentences out loud just so that you can really conceptualize where it is that we're headed in this, the psychology behind where this kind of gets bad. So the first sentence reads as thus. It says, I don't want to affirm, encourage, or speak kindly towards my spouse because I love her. Second sentence, I don't want to spend quality time with my mate because I love him. Third sentence, I don't want to give gifts to my spouse because I love him. Fourth sentence, I don't want to serve my partner because I love her. Fifth sentence, I don't want to touch my spouse because I love him. Interesting, right? Like, you can't say one out of those 5 sentences out loud and sound sane. You can't even feel sane saying those things out loud. It doesn't compute. It doesn't correlate to what love is. So you know why saying those sentences out loud sounds crazy is because at your core, you know that all of the gestures that I shared are acts of love. Now, with that being said, if you're so interested in knowing about and experiencing love, how can you be passionate and a fanatic about being and identifying with only one of the five love languages? I'm almost willing to bet you never thought about that. Now, want to hear something else that's interesting? You probably don't at this point. Um, but I'm gonna read 5 more sentences, and I want you to hear how these translate. First sentence, I don't want to affirm, encourage, or speak kindly toward my spouse because I hate her. Second sentence, I don't want to spend quality time with my mate because I hate him. Third sentence, I don't want to share gifts with my spouse because I hate him. I, in fourth sentence, I don't want to serve my partner because I hate her. Fifth and last sentence, I don't want to touch my spouse because I hate him. Now, isn't that interesting? If you say the 5 sentences that I just read out loud with hate at the end, they all sound sane. It might not sound nice, but it makes sense to say out loud, or they make sense to say out loud when you use the word hate at the end of it. So let's conceptualize this. Our selfishness, I apologize, leaves us in denial of the hateful things that we indirectly proclaim that we struggle to be able to do or say for our partners or for others. Still excited about just being one out of the 5 love languages? So, when you walk in the true essence of love, the 5 love languages are the natural fruits of your interactions with your mate. This is why it's natural to maneuver in the characteristics of the 5 love languages when you're dating, and you've concluded that you've fallen in love because in that window of time, you're literally walking in love, the essence of love. So, what is love? If I was to ask you to give examples of acts of love, you would give examples of things that people do for others, not what people get from others. Love is the act of giving with no expectations of a return, period. Love is not reciprocal. Any act of giving with expectation of a return is a transaction, or I like to say manipulation. It's not love. Love is not give and take. It just looks like give and take in a relationship when it's done correctly because both people are giving one to another. To protest that he or she doesn't know your love language is to imply that he or she isn't doing something for you, which means that you aren't speaking from a place of love, which is giving. You are speaking from a frustrated place of manipulation, which is seeking to receive a return on what you have given. I can hear your thoughts. So if I'm not going to get anything out of the relationship, then what's the point? Or if you are the intellectual debater, you're thinking, well, if they aren't doing these things for me, then they aren't giving from a place of love. Because, like you said earlier in this conversation, love is giving. And the only way that I know he or she is giving is if I'm getting. Touche. Both thoughts and rebuttals would be valid, which leads to the ugly point of this. So we've moved from being a little bit uncomfortable about learning that just identifying with one might suggest that you don't necessarily love your mate. You might be being conformed or institutionalized into thinking that this is how you are, this is how you're wired, and this is how you should be, to now, matter of fact, I digress. I'm not even going to the ugly yet. We're going to stick to the bad thing about this, the concepts that we just kind of invaded, that we kind of made us question if is this really how I should be or how I am? Or is this me finding an excuse to not work on things that I should be working on? Or better yet, is this an excuse for me not to be responsible? Because if I am trying to force him or her to start giving me gifts so that I can feel love, then maybe our bills aren't getting paid. And I just need to work on my self-esteem issues and being an adult and actually saying that there's a difference between need and a want. Or let's go to let's see, what do we have? We got quality time. You might want quality time, but now we go back into finances again. You want the bills paid. You all have created a lifestyle that has allowed for you to enjoy your household and your trips and things of that nature. But if the need to maintain it requires you to work in order for you to do that, the quality time that you're asking for might not be the quality time that you can have. So now we have a dilemma. Do we need to adjust our lifestyle so that he or she does not have to work as hard, so that we don't have to have the lack of quality time so that we can accommodate the expenses that we've created? What about the serving part? Being served. Is that an ego thing? I am the man or the queen of my house, so I am supposed to get what it is that the man gets first. Are we going back to generalizations? I'm supposed to get the big piece of chicken. I eat before the children get to eat, before the entire household gets to eat. Is that really, is it, are we leaning on something that is suggestive that it's a crutch for something that you actually need to be working on or actually seeing yourself like you're doing right now? And I'm glad that you stayed this long because I know it's uncomfortable. What about the touch? Is it possible that you actually conceptualize love with just touch, which is physical, when love is really deeper than that, a deeper connection? Now, mind you, I already stated that having one of these sounds crazy. We've read the 5 sentences, so please don't misunderstand, but please also consider what it is that we're talking about. Some people use these quote unquote needs to justify the things that they need to be working on or maturing in or getting counsel for or therapy for, because they've had trauma that caused them to think that because I do something, I'm supposed to get gifts. My mom or dad did it. Every time I did a good job in school, I was rewarded. I look for accolades and rewards and things of that. So I need that encouragement from someone else so that I can feel valued, which suggests that you don't have value yourself. But we haven't gone there because that's the ugly. We're headed there. But I want to kind of talk about all of these things that we identify with that suggest that this is who or what I am, and how I'm fighting for my woman or for my man to finally understand and get this. And if he or she actually loved me, they would do these things to accommodate the need that I have. Serving, I think we discussed that. Gifts, we discussed that. That could be you just being irresponsible with your finances, not being a steward, and you're justifying that being your love language. We've already talked about touch. You might be trying to scratch a spiritual or emotional itch with a physical scratcher. So now you always want to feel touched so that you can feel wanted. We've already discussed gifts. We've already discussed serving. Serving, like, is that beneath you? to serve one, or is to be served? Is that something that is suggestive of you feeling like you are deserving of being, this is what who I am, this is what I'm supposed to have as the man or woman? You know what? I'm gonna put a pin in it. I'm gonna put a period right there. We're gonna stop with the bad, but that kind of gets us to the ugly though, right? So let's go ahead and tap into this, the ugly side of this. So it kind of gets worse, because the ugly aspect of this is you can only need what you don't have. I'm gonna say that again. You can only need what you don't have. So if we are suggesting that my spouse isn't doing this for me, and this is what I need to be happy, this is what I need to be loved, you can only need what you don't have. So the fact that you need someone else to give a love language to you in order for your love tank to be filled, or you to be fulfilled, implies that you lack the language, which means that you aren't giving the characteristics that your love language requires you to have to yourself, which ultimately means that you don't love yourself just as much as you accuse your spouse or mate of not loving you. Now let's unpack that, because now we got to look in the mirror. Now we have to take responsibility for our happiness or lack thereof. Again, don't misconstrue what it is that I'm saying. Don't misrepresent what it is that I'm saying. As I shared in the conversation earlier, love is give. It's not give and take. It's not reciprocal. But if you're in the right relationship, it looks and feels like give and take, because both are just freely and lovingly giving. So, if your happiness and fulfillment is no one's job but yours, to have a mate that gives to you from a place of love, be it the 5 love languages and beyond, should be your overflow. See, I've been married for 20 years, going on 21 years. And one thing that we know and we understand is that our happiness is not anyone's responsibility but our own. My wife's job is not to make me happy. My job is not to make my wife happy. Our happiness is our responsibility. And if, matter of fact, let's unpack it. If you suggest that someone else needs to do something for you to feel loved or to feel happy, you don't even know how to help them do that, because you don't have that already. That's what we said earlier. You can only need what you don't have. So you haven't even mastered how to feel loved if you need someone else to make you feel loved. I need us to really sit with that. Really look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, wow, I didn't think about it that way. How can I have the audacity to suggest that my wife or my husband is supposed to make me happy, which means I lack happiness, which means I'm not making me happy. And if you're not making you happy, you haven't even figured out what makes you happy. So how in the world can you expect for someone else to do it when you haven't even figured out how to do it yet? You don't even know how to love you yet, so that you can articulate for the person how to love you effectively. So, the lack of shared love in a relationship or romantic relationship doesn't stem from the partner not giving. It stems from the partner looking to receive it, not starting with it. So if you don't start with love, that's the problem. That's where you're looking to have your cup filled or refilled. So you are looking to your partner to assist in you actually feeling like you are someone. And that's the journey that we have to take. What in the world do I need to do so that I am happy or I feel loved? Because the reality of all of this relationship stuff is, and I hate to say it, but this is the reality, the harsh reality. You're going to lose your spouse. I did a dramatic pause intentionally. You're going to lose your spouse. That's inevitable. You're either going to lose them to death or divorce. The two D's. You're either going to lose your spouse to death or divorce. One thing that makes me feel like I get tense, I get frustrated when people ask me, where's your other half? To suggest that my wife makes me whole. That is insane. And what I mean by that is I'm whole by myself. My wife does not complete me. These are words and statements that we say that sound so nice and so loving because we suggested that a person causes us to be or have a being or a purpose. But when they're gone, then what? Now I'm 50%? That is insane. Not even considering the fact that you were a whole before you became an item. And that's why a lot of times when people transition, be it through the divorce or through death, they die or they just lose themselves after because their whole identity was in that other person. You should be whole before you're with someone, and you should be whole while you're with someone. You should be living harmoniously as individuals. That does not suggest that you are trying to get someone to become like you. That is suggesting that you remain you. You pick the person that you love as they are, who might not be like you, and you two make beautiful music together, one sound, while sustaining your individuality. You should be constantly growing and evolving as yourself. They should be constantly growing and evolving as themselves, and you should love who that person is. And with that, it would allow for you to identify that, okay, this is what's happening. He or she is, let's do that. Now I'm about to go off in tangents now. Listen to how selfish the concepts have gotten for us, where we can suggest that he or she does not love or know my love language. We can point out and say he or she, his love language is touch, or he or she, their love language is affirmation, or he or she, their love language is uh gifts, quality time. We can articulate that. We get so good at this book that we can articulate that this person is that, but they don't take the time. We get upset. He or she does not take the time to learn my love language, which means he or she is not doing to me what it is that I want to do. Now, I say all that to show how selfish we are, because what that means is you've identified that their default setting is this type of action as far as the quote unquote love language, right? Yet you can't identify that when they go to their default setting, that's literally them expressing love. Because you're not getting your way, you automatically deem that to be the person not loving you. That's kind of interesting. How in the world can you conclude that the person does not love you when you identified that that is their love language? So basically, what we've concluded is, which is chapter 2 in my book, is that it's not that they don't love you, y'all just don't love alike. So if you can identify that they're responding a certain way, yes, you can teach them that, hey, this is my preference. But you can also identify the fact that they're doing that because that's their preference, but they're still showing you love. They're still expressing love to you. So, in conclusion, I want to say, for one, I appreciate you taking the ride. Two, I know we have discussed some things that have you like, I know he didn't. I know he did not talk about me like that. Well, I had to talk about myself too. I thought about those things. I have to counsel people who they're actually using this whole love language thing as a weapon that's destroying their relationship when it's literally a shift in perspective. Because as we discussed, the 5 sentences, how can you honestly say that you love your spouse, but you only express that through one of these 5 things? I'll wait. But on the same token, what you can do is you can express that you hate your spouse by doing all of these 5 things, or not doing all of these 5 things. When you're really moving in the essence of love, it's a reflex to do these things. That's why it comes as such a shock at a pivotal point of a relationship when the people actually stop doing them. Because naturally we will become people that touch or give gifts or things of that nature throughout the process of the beginning of a relationship, because that's when we're moving in the essence of love, as I shared earlier. But when you get to a place of the consistencies and again your default settings, who you actually are, those things typically they dwindle and we lose sight of them, and as opposed to becoming intentional about doing them because we do love the person, even though that is not who we are. We kind of just get lazy, and we need to stop that. We need to be intentional about our actions towards our respective partners and our mates, not overwhelmingly so, but acknowledging that these are what loving people do. These are things that loving people do. This is how we respond to one another. So I need to get some touches in. I need to get some gifts in. I need to do that. But it needs to make sense. It needs to not be used as some type of enablement or crutch to not be a responsible adult. And I've already brought up my book. My book is called The Handbook for Increasing Your Relationship IQ. I'll say that slower because it's pretty long. Matter of fact, let me give you a picture of the cover. It's The Handbook for Increasing Your Relationship IQ. If you have questions, comments, you want to fuss me out, you want to have an intellectual conversation about the things that we discussed today, you can reach me directly at my email address, which is Edward L. Fairley. You see that on the screen. No dot though. Edward L. Fairley at No Love Inc. That's KNOWLOVEINC.com. Or you can go to my website, which is NoLoveInc.com, to look at the other things that we have. I've invented a simulator. I'm not sure if you've seen that episode. I do coaching, but these are the things foundationally broken first before you can really get into the essence of being a loving person, not even a partner, a loving person.
Absolutely. This is amazing. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing your expertise on the Black Business Network. This information is so vital and so needed for relationships, not just of the past, but today and for future reference. So we definitely appreciate you. If you don't mind, could you share your contact information one more time for our
I,
audience?
I don't mind at all. My email address is Edward L. Fairley. That's F as in Frank, AIRLEY at No Love Inc. KNOWLOVEINC.com.
All right, excellent. I would like to just, if you don't mind, ask a few questions in reference
No,
to.
I don't mind.
Excellent,
Please come on.
excellent. Um, in just in reference to relationships today, why do you feel people are moving away from marriage versus actually now having an opportunity to get married, be in relationship with each other, versus just cohabitating? They just, I don't want to get married, or they stay in these long term situations because they feel like that is happier, that is more peaceful. What are your thoughts?
There's a couple things. The stigma of marriage. I can tell you, just being around people, you listen to the conversation, the subtle statements that they make about being a married partner. So I, let me say it this way: our representation of marriage is terrible. We do not have many couples that we say, you know what, I want that in my life. So if we don't represent marriage well because we're not doing it correctly, then who would aspire to want to do that? Why do I want to sign up for that? When I can just do this, this seems to be working out fine. And then the last thing is it's the mirror. A lot of people don't like to look in the mirror and see themselves. Today, this segment was looking in the mirror, seeing where you contribute to your issue, as opposed to having someone to blame for your issue. When you get married, there is no more hiding. You can't hide yourself. It is consistently seeing yourself, either seeing your flaws, seeing your anger issues, seeing your frustrations, seeing your lack of ability to communicate. It's a mirror. And if you're not fine with looking in the mirror, you're not going to be fine with being married.
Absolutely. And I love the piece that you spoke on in reference to happiness, that your spouse or your significant other is responsible for their own happiness. I know coming into relationships myself, and then, of course, coaching others through relationship, I let them know your significant other or your spouse is to add to your happiness, not make you
Yeah,
happy. Because, like you
exactly.
said, if you're not finding that happiness, that joy within, then it's very difficult for someone to come in and take on the responsibility and holding them accountable for your happiness. So
Which means you didn't even do it yourself. You didn't hold yourself accountable. Because why do you need happiness? Because you don't have it.
you don't have it. Yeah, so I'm to add to my significant other's happiness because it already supposed to be there, you know?
Exactly.
And like when they say, 50-50 relationships, I said, no, I need you to come 100.
Thank please, please. If I came to you as just a torso, you'd
Yeah,
probably look at me a little strange. So, so come
absolutely.
on, where's the other half? Come on now. We gotta do
Absolutely.
better.
Absolutely. And with couples today, are what are you finding is the most difficult challenge in relationships today?
Honestly, like it all boils down to love. I suggested earlier that we as a culture are taught that manipulation is really what love is. And
Mhm.
that's give and take. That means I've done something for you and you are supposed to do something back for me. That's not love, no matter how you slice it. And what we don't realize is to really move in love, it's a superpower. If I did something for my wife as a gesture, be it gifts, be it time, be it whatever, if I did that to suggest that I love her, that is just an extension of me showing her that I love her without any expectations of anything in return. I can't be frustrated at what she doesn't do back to me or what she does do back towards me because that was not the intent behind my action. everyone's expectations are based off of again manipulation. So when they do stuff, that's why you have a whole list. I do this for him, I do this for her, I did this and I didn't get anything back. Your frustration is because your expectation was my actions should yield me results as opposed to my actions just being loving. That's what's destroying relationships.
Understood. And as a married man yourself, are you finding it difficult for other married men to bend their ear concerning love and relationships? Because I'm hearing more men speak to the hearts of men concerning relationship. However, I'm not seeing men being receptive. You know, there's always going to be someone who's going to not agree with what is being said concerning how men should treat a woman, concerning how men should operate in relationship. What say you?
Well, I am definitely an enigma. Men talk to me about relationships all the time. The text messages that I get, and that's because going back to what I said, I am an example of what love is. So I give men permission to be loving because they didn't know that that was something that they could be and that it could be masculine, so to speak, to do it. It is such a when people realize the strength in love, the strength in the concept of love, men would definitely embrace it. It's just packaged. Typically, when we talk about relationships, it's packaged in the manner that it's supposed to be for women. It's not for us. So if you make it that way, we're going to shy from it. It's interesting, like you just said, you're having groups, they're not talking about relationships. You'll bring us together and we'll talk about relationships. When you all have your women's group, y'all are talking about relationships. So if we're not talking about it, if we're not sharing, if we're not openly affectionate towards our mates, there's no example that says that that is okay. I had a guy
Understood.
tell me, man, you wear bright colors. I saw you wear a bright pink shirt. He literally said to me, he said, I was like, man, I think I could do that. At first, I wouldn't wear pink, but I give people permission to be things that culture told them that they couldn't. And I show them and I make it look good. So,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
if you present it in a manner that it looks appealing, people will be attracted to it.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Fairley. This has been an amazing conversation and information that you have put out there. We thank you so much for being a part of the Black Business Network, and we appreciate your expertise. And remember, genius is common, and I will see you on the other side.
Thank you for having me.